And this is Honky Tonk Man, the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. And, of course, you're listening to another wrestling podcast. Unbelievable.
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at
the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
They think they got the answers. I change the question.
The cream of the crop. Nobody does it better.
These are the best in the world, brother. These are the best at what they do.
When we talk about the legends of the sport, there's only two in my book.
Another wrestling podcast.
Another wrestling podcast. Now can you dig that, sucker?
All right. Welcome to another wrestling podcast. I'm Steve Credo.
And I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
And welcome to episode 106. Jonathan, 106 episodes of another wrestling podcast. I'm going to have to steal your line and say this could be the best show yet.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you, which doesn't happen all the time. But 106 episodes, it's a very impressive feat. Over 2 years we've been doing this here at Another Wrestling Podcast. We highly urge all of you to head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com to check out all of our past interviews and really get a good feel for who we are and what we do.
Because not only are we another wrestling podcast, but we're another award-winning wrestling podcast. I got to throw that out there sometimes just to let the fans know, right?
Two-time
award winners. Jonathan, you know, it's going to be a great show, but why is it going to be a great show? Who's going to drop by today?
Well, I know this for a fact that you got to actually speak with the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, the Honky Tonk Man. He's cool, he's cocky, he's bad, and you're going to be talking to him later in the show. Yeah, and
we're going to find out some stuff you probably never knew about. So stick around. HTM is in the house. I can't wait for it. But Jonathan, you know, it's been a big week in wrestling. It's been getting bigger, it seems, every week since WrestleMania, and a lot of things have happened. We just came off of WWE Payback. We just came off the pay-per-view. Jonathan, man, it was, I don't know, it was a great pay-per-view. It was good. There was a lot of good things. A few things that could have gone without. I don't know. Can you give us some of your thoughts, and maybe we could figure out what went right and what went wrong this weekend?
Absolutely. I want to say first and foremost that I love professional wrestling. It is no secret. And I may not like everybody's character. I may not like the direction that sometimes wrestling seems to be going. But what I do want to say is I respect all those athletes, the men and women who go into that ring to put on a show and entertain us. Because without them, we wouldn't have a podcast to talk about wrestling. So, with that being said, during WWE Payback, Enzo and Cass took on the Vaudevillains in the tag team tournament to determine the number one contendership. And Enzo suffered a very scary moment. It started out, you know, looking like he was going to go slide under the rope. And what happened, he got hung up and his head hit the mat, and he pretty much knocked himself out with a concussion. A very scary moment. It was one of those things that obviously was not scripted, and everybody, you know, I felt like a collective gasp. Like the entire wrestling community just was saying, no one should want to see anybody get hurt, and this is, you know, a classic case of that. Enzo Amore, we found out later, was doing well. He got released from the hospital. He did have a concussion, so I think here at Another Wrestling Podcast, we want to wish him the speediest of recoveries. But it was such a scary moment, Steve.
Yeah, man. You know, things happen. This is a reality. This is what happens when these guys put their bodies on the line, and you know, it's hard to say. It's not. I don't think there's really anybody at fault. It's more of like the wrong place, wrong time, and especially the wrong place, wrong time for them too. As I think they were going to be the winners on the end of that match. getting that title shot. So, it's unfortunate that happened, but maybe, things happen for a reason. I hope he's back a lot sooner than later. Man, they've had a great debut, and, their first pay-per-view on the main roster. Well, no, the second pay-per-view on the main roster, considering they had the Roadblock match before that, but still, technically their first main roster pay-per-view since being on the main roster. So, wrong place, wrong time, unfortunate accident. But, this is what happens. It's pro wrestling. People want to say what they will about it, but, real injuries like this, real, things happen, and it's very unfortunate. There was a lot more stuff that happened on that show. A lot of great matches. Another match that probably should have happened at WrestleMania was Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens. What a great match, Jonathan. And, they had to follow that injury by Enzo, so the crowd was kind of down, but they somehow, they did what they do. And, it was a great match. I'm shaking my head like, why couldn't we have seen this at Mania? And I don't know. Unfortunately, Mania has become, the spot fest where everybody's got to be on the card. You're going to have like 12 on 12, 5 on 5, 4 on 4. And we couldn't get a KO versus Sami Zayn match at WrestleMania, but we got it at Payback, and unfortunately for Sami Zayn, Jonathan, he is still in a losing streak right now.
Yeah, but you know what? This match did wonders for both of them, and for anybody who was wondering if Kevin Owens was going to make it in the WWE, because he came in on such a high, and then it looked like maybe they were going to kind of mid-card him for a little bit. But the guy's a total package. I don't care what his body looks like. I don't care anything about that. The guy can go as a wrestler. He's dynamite on the microphone, commentary. Whatever you give him, he turns it into gold. And that is not taking anything away from Sami Zayn, because Sami Zayn, as we saw at Dallas TakeOver and so many other showings he's had, is just an incredible athlete. But this match was amazing, and it's not the last that we've seen. I'm thoroughly impressed by both these guys. And, one of the things that I think is just so amazing about the two of these guys is that they couldn't be more different, but they have this amazing story. And for people who are familiar with them, they had it in Ring of Honor as well. But what works. And I'm just fortunate that we get to see it in the WWE as well. And I hate to say I told you so to everybody who was really hating on Roman Reigns, but this was an incredible match. And AJ Styles could probably have an incredible match with a broom, as they say, but Roman held his own. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not Dave Meltzer, but it was 4 to 5 stars at least, I think.
Well, I think it's just another case of, these guys had chemistry together. Their sizes worked towards each other in the ring. Roman's a little bit bigger than AJ. AJ's a little bit faster than Roman. They complemented each other really well. And I actually think this is probably Roman's best match as a champion or in the WWE. Any match he's ever had, I think this is one of his best ones. Especially, I think it was even better than his WrestleMania match. I don't know, Jonathan. I think it's just, these guys worked great together. And at the end of the night, I honestly didn't care if AJ won or lost. I mean, the fans won with that kind of a match, that kind of a main event. Just the chaos that ensued, the restarting of the match and the rules. It worked, and I thought it was great. And I have no complaints either. I think at the end of the day, we all won.
Well, and people talk about how, on Raw, it's a lot of talking, all that stuff. But I don't know if you realize that was over 25 minutes, that match. And, it seemed like to go by really quick just because it was a great match. I love the idea to have the Usos with Roman and to have what looks to be the rumblings of the rebirth of the Bullet Club with AJ. I don't know where they're going with it, but it's fun right now, and it's very interesting. And I'm excited to see, but I do think that Roman, he's, whether you want to listen to him and when he says he's the guy or not, there is some truth to that statement. And, bring on the hate, because I'm sure that we'll have some keyboard warriors telling me I'm the worst thing ever. And that's fine. That's what's great about this sport, and that's what's great about discussions, is that we can all have varying opinions. But right now, I do believe that Roman is on a hot streak. I'm looking forward to other matches, and we'll see what he's got. Like we said earlier, we have the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time joining us today. It is my pleasure right now to throw it to the one, the only, Honky Tonk Man.
I got long sideburns and my hair slicked back. I'm coming to your town in my pink Cadillac. I'm just a honky tonk man. He's a honky tonk man. I'm just a honky tonk man. He's a honky tonk man. I'm just a honky tonk man. I'm cool. I'm cocky. I'm bad.
All right, it's not every day that we get a former Intercontinental Champion on the show. It's even more rare to have the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming a legend and the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, the Honky Tonk Man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, it's good to be here, and I thought I was going to have to correct you there, but you did get that greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time in there.
That's right. Honky Tonk Man, how you doing? How you doing today? Everything going good?
You know, I'll tell you what, I'm out here in Arizona. It's a beautiful morning, 10 a.m. when we're speaking now, and it's that season where my allergies are killing me. I'm hacking, I'm coughing, I'm sneezing, my eyes are watery, but hey, you know what, it could be worse.
Sure. Well, let's get right into it. You know, how did you get involved into this crazy world of professional wrestling?
Well, as a joke and some of the stuff that I say when I go out and do my comedy shows, it's an extension of childhood. I never really wanted to grow up. I just wanted to play around my whole life. But it was one of those things where, on a serious side, I had a couple of friends of mine when we were in college at the University of Memphis. They were involved in watching wrestling. Of course, my cousin Jerry the King Lawler had started in the wrestling business 3-4 years before I did, and was making a name for himself and being a big TV star in Memphis. And I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. It wasn't something that I had to see every Saturday morning or anything by that nature. And my friends, we were on a weightlifting team, and they were on a football team, and we wanted to, just do things. And they said, let's try this wrestling stuff. And they talked me into going up to Dyersburg, Tennessee, where Herb Welch of the famous Welch family out of Tennessee and Georgia and Florida. These Welches, they owned all these territories back then. And I went up and started training, and I had another cousin that was there training, a boy named Carl Fergie, and he ended up working in Louisiana territory in Oklahoma for Bill Watts, and toward the end, when the Watts closed down, he was the head referee and pulling the ring and doing all that stuff for Watts, and so there was 3 of us in that family that's in the wrestling business, and of course Jerry's sons got in the business also. So our family's pretty much entwined in pro wrestling.
Sure. Now, in pro wrestling, do you go back to a time when you actually got your first big break? Do you remember that?
Oh gosh. Well, the first real break I had was in Memphis with when we did the Tupelo concession stand thing. Now, I had toiled around and had been around different places for 3 or 4 years prior to that. I'd started, and of course, nowadays they call them independent territories or independent wrestling. Back then we were called outlaws. We were outlaw wrestlers, and because we didn't work for any organization. But I started in Missouri with Coco Beware was my training partner up there in Dyersburg, and then of course we had hundreds of matches together for the next year or so, and he ended up staying in Memphis, and I went out on the road and went to Florida, and I went to Georgia and different places, and then I came back to Memphis and did the Tupelo concession stand thing. So that was probably the first break, yeah.
All right. Now, how does one change from being the Blonde Bomber to the Honky Tonk Man?
That was quite a transformation, I can tell you. My children saw pictures, and they said, yeah, that's Jim. It was myself, Jimmy Hart, and Kevin Sullivan in the photo. And, of course, I had the long blonde hair, and you guys have probably seen it. Some of the fans have. But my daughter and my son said, that's Jimmy Hart. Who's the other guy? And I said, you can't tell? My son said, Dad, it kind of looks like you. My daughter said, no, it doesn't. And I said, well, it was me. But the transformation came because... There again, after doing a Tupelo concession stand thing, and then I went off and myself and Larry Latham Spot Moondog, we were the tag team all around the South, and tried to, keep that our blonde bomber thing going. But Dutch Mantell needed a partner in Puerto Rico, and I ended up leaving Larry and going to Puerto Rico. And when I came back, I really needed something different. The blonde hair and all this, just it was one of those things that had run its course with me. And I've always tried to reinvent myself no matter what, and keep the wheel rolling. And so I switched off to do the black hair, and I had the sideburns, and some fans gave me the jumpsuit, and that's how this Honky Tonk Man character started.
All right. Now, back when you were wrestling, there were lots of wrestlers with gimmicks. These days, it doesn't seem to be the case. It's almost as if it's a geographical thing now. It's what country you come from or whatnot. But do you think it's harder maybe just to get a gimmick over with fans these days?
I think you can, given it has to be the right one, and let me put it this way. I've had 5, 6, 7, 8 different things I tried to do before this one Honky Tonk Man thing, it hit, it clicked, and to find that one, you have to try. I tell the kids nowadays, try everything, try a lot of stuff. Find that one that you can do within yourself, and then you can project it to the fans. Mm-hmm. And if the fans believe in what you're doing, and you can show that you believe in it, you have a much better chance. I wish the gimmick wrestlers would come back. I'm really tired of seeing the cookie cutters. Everyone is tanned and real thin and muscular and all tattooed up, and let's get some costumes, let's get some glitz and some glamour. We're in show business, let's make it that way.
Exactly. Now when you got the call to come to WWE, how much input did you get for your character?
It was totally mine. That was something that back when we were all there together, our characters had already been developed over a period of time, and I had worked on this Honky Tonk Man thing for about 5 years before I was ever seen on the main stage out of the New York territory. So I had perfected the gimmick. I knew how I wanted it to work. I knew how I could make it work. Now Vince is very good at this, and he always, when he wants to tweak a gimmick or he wants to tweak a personality or a persona, he can do it, and he's really, really good at it. And he tweaked it a little bit, and but otherwise he just let us run with it. I mean, he let Hercules be Hercules, and Ravishing Rick Rude was Ravishing Rick Rude, and the Hulkster was Hulkamania was running wild. You don't have to tweak that. So we were just given that opportunity, and but keep in mind now we were all seasoned veterans. There wasn't anybody. I think Paul Roma was like the youngest guy in the locker room. He'd been around 4 or 5 years, but everyone had been around 10, 15, 18 years. So we were seasoned pros.
Sure. Now, we stated earlier in the show, obviously, you were the longest-reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. But was there ever a true endgame to your reign, or did it bother you maybe how you lost your title to the Ultimate Warrior?
No, the Ultimate Warrior thing was that was the one time that I had creative control. That I was told by the WWE, well, look, we need this guy over, and this is what we need. And I said, sure, let me do it my way. And they gave me creative control of the whole idea of the short match, and everything was all my idea, and they let me do it, and I think it worked very well for everyone involved. I mean, do you ever want to give up a big paycheck? And I was doing very, very well financially with the Intercontinental belt. Not like the world's title, or not like working against Hogan, but I mean, to be in that second slot there was a pretty good place to be. And could it have gone longer? I'm sure it could have. Would it have gone for another year? Maybe. Who knows? And then who would you have lost it to would be another question. And I think, we all had questions about the Warrior at that point in time, but obviously he was the right person for it.
Sure. Now the Intercontinental Championship used to have a lot of prestige, and most people consider that if you held the IC title, that you were the next in line to be for the WWF Championship. Were there ever any talks about maybe the Honky Tonk Man being a WWF World Heavyweight Champion?
No, and you know, if you really look back at it, Pat Patterson, who created the belt, was never the world's champion. Don Morocco had the belt, never the world's champion. Greg Valentine, never the world. Tito Santana. The list goes on and on. It wasn't until I think maybe was it Brett or I think Brett was the guy or no Warrior, and then it started to be like world's champions after that. They were kind of groomed for it, but. No, I was never considered for that. Back then, it was Hulkamania, man. That was just it. It was it. I didn't know, why would you want to change something that's 20,000, 25,000, I saw 70,000 people over in Toronto for that big thing with Paul Orndorff and Hogan just when I started coming into WWE. So, I mean, man, if you're clicking like that, you leave it alone.
Sure. Now, other than yourself, who would you consider a great Intercontinental Champion?
Oh, there were so many. Rick Rude was a good champion. Of course, Macho Man was. Steamboat would have been a good champion if he had stuck around and had, held the belt longer. People think, it's a misconception, really. They think Steamboat was this great Intercontinental champion. He only had the belt for like 6 weeks, maybe even shorter period of time than that. And I didn't know until I looked at the history of the thing not so long ago that Macho Man was a very close second to me. He had the belt for a long time. Mm-hmm. And, Brett was a good champion. Shawn was a good champion. The stuff that Razor did, he was a good champion. The list goes on and on. Sure. They were all good. The thing I didn't like was the China being, getting the title and then Stone Cold throwing it in the river and things like that. I thought that was, when you do things like that, you diminish it, and it's never really come back after that.
Sure. And now, I don't know how much of the current product you watch, but do you have any thoughts on how the IC Championship gets treated in the world of wrestling today?
I don't really watch the product because, if you don't work for the company, you don't really care what they're doing. Because what I do out here on doing the autograph signings and going to independent shows is totally different from what they do, and I don't like to be associated with them because I don't do what they do. Sure. But to hear, and I think I read this morning or yesterday. I kind of read the news reports every day on the websites, and I can. It's like missing a soap opera for 2 weeks. All you have to do is read one report, and you got it all back. So,
sure.
But I was reading something, or someone had posted on Twitter to me. I think it was this morning, maybe. I guess if you win the belt on Sunday and lose it on Monday, nobody's going to break the record. So that's the case of it being so diminished. Mm-hmm. Bruno held the belt for 10 years or 15 years, and Hogan had it for like 10 years, and that's how you establish a real champion, is someone who has that longevity and it has to be the right person that's doing good enough with it.
Definitely.
I think they've diminished all the belts now to the point where to say you're the world's champion has no value.
Sure. Yep. Now also throughout your career, you also carried a guitar with you to the ring. Were you glad to have that as part of your character, or did you feel that maybe it was a burden to carry it everywhere with you?
Actually, I was glad now that I'm on the independents and I don't carry one. to be honest with you, because it was it's a podcast, it's a family show, but I can't say it was a pain in the ass. Yes. So and they wanted me to carry it all the time. They said, "Well, Jake carries the snake, the Bulldogs carries the dog," and it's like, okay, so you can. I get to carry 2 bags on the plane back then. It was one of them was my suits that I had to carry for TV and the clothing, because they wanted a change of clothing every TV tape, and we did 3. So I had to carry 3 different jumpsuits. I had to carry clothes for the road that lasted for. I didn't get home for every 2 months, so and then you got to carry this guitar, and it was getting broken, stolen, and all those things that happened with checked luggage. And they finally said, "Okay, we'll just put them on the ring trucks," and so I didn't have to carry them anymore. But that guitar thing was never my idea. That was Colonel Robert Parker. Remember him from?
Oh yeah.
From WCW. Well, he was a Welch now. He was. Robert Fuller, he was from the Welch family. When I started this Honky Tonk Man character, he was the booker in Southeastern Wrestling down in Pensacola and Mobile. He gave me that guitar idea. He says, man, you get that guitar and you hit that, man, you whack him over the back with that thing and we'd be off and rolling. Next thing I know, he brings one to TV, and we did it.
Now, like you said earlier, too, you're very active on the independent scene these days. Do you notice maybe a lot of younger fans coming up to you, especially now with like the WWE Network available anywhere, where these fans can just dip back into time and watch your matches? Do you get a lot of that?
Yes, and in the beginning, I thought the network. I said, "Gosh, I don't know that they'll ever get their target number that they need to make this thing work." But I'm glad they did it. I'm glad it's working because it has introduced guys like myself and Greg Valentine and Tito and different, and the Bushwhacker Luke that I travel with a lot. It's reintroduced us to a lot of young fans that typically 2, 3, 5 years ago, 10 years ago didn't know who we were.
Mm-hmm. Now, Honky Tonk Man, do you have anything coming up these days that you want to promote?
Well, I'm starting out with this one-man comedy show, which it seems like a lot of guys are doing. I had done these things before. Myself and Lanny Poffo had did a couple of them 7, 8, 10 years ago, long before anyone else, and I kind of put it on a back burner, and now it's starting to pick up some steam again. So I have some shows booked with that, and it's called a Shake, Rattle, and Roll. It's one of those cutting edge. I can do them X-rated. I can do them PG-rated. Depends on what the venue wants. And personally, I can do them either way. The X-rated one's a lot more funny.
Of course.
but I have probably half a dozen of those things booked. 2 weeks from now, I'm going over to Wells, England for the Wells Comic Con, and I'll wrestle. In fact, Steamboat and Booker T will be on those shows. I'm going to actually get in the ring at Preston City Wrestling over there. And then I'm going out to New Zealand for another Comic-Con and a wrestling shows down there. So I stay on the road as much as I want, and it's one of those things where I love this business so much I would do it every day of my life if the airplanes weren't so packed with people.
Yep.
It's a chore just to go to the airport and fly. And I'm living out here in Phoenix. There's no work out west. There's nothing out this way. There's nothing really in L.A. or Utah or Idaho or Colorado. So everything I have to fly back to the East Coast, and that's 5 hours, 4.5 hours going over, 5 hours coming back. So it's a chore.
Sure. And now, in the world of social media and whatnot, where can the fans keep up with you these days?
Well, the best thing now is, of course, this tweeter, that official HTM. I've over 100,000 people on there with me, and then the Facebook thing works pretty good. And some of the fans don't understand. I'm in the wrestling business to make money, so I advertise things on Twitter and Facebook, like the T-shirts and the photos and the little guitars that I sell on, all these things I sell on eBay. But if you don't promote it, if they don't know you're there, they're not going to show up for the event. So some guy says, do you ever do anything other than just promote your products? Well, what other thing is there other than promote myself?
Exactly.
So, but yeah, and I'll let you guys know this. I stopped doing podcasts because I had my own podcast going at one time, and we had over 100,000 listeners live on Wednesday nights. It was really something, and I worked very hard at it. Didn't get a lot of reward out of it, so I dropped it. I finally gave up on it, and then other people came along with podcasts and started. And after I did mine, it was hard for me to get WWE talent, hard for me to get guys on. And so, because I was controversial and cutting edge, and they were afraid of ambush journalism.
Yep.
So I said, heck, these guys didn't want to do my show. I won't do anymore. And I had promised one of the fellas that I would do his show when it was all said and done, and Colt Cabana. And he held me to it about 6 months later, and I did his, and I did Jimmy Cornette. I did one a few weeks ago, and now I'm doing yours. So I have not done a lot of these things.
Well, we really appreciate your time and for doing another wrestling podcast. Thank you so much.
Yep, another wrestling podcast.
We thank you so much. Yeah.
You know, I did a little research and I looked. I said, "Now, what is another?" And the name itself, kind of caught me by surprise. It's like another wrestling. I like this, another wrestling podcast, because that's a great name.
Thanks. Well, I mean, when we were looking at, for names, everybody's got like the Armbar podcast, or they were coming up with moves and whatnot. And I was like, let's just make it funny, because everybody's going to ask what you're listening to. We could tell them you're listening to another wrestling podcast. And
yes, and absolutely, and that the particular name itself is the one that caught my eye. And so yes, I've enjoyed being on with you guys, and I appreciate it. And to all the fans out there, no matter how bad the product is, it's still better than anything else.
Make sure you head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com, the mothership of AWP. You can find links to subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Player FM, and TuneIn.
You can buy our official Another Wrestling Podcast shirts, ProWrestlingTees.com/AnotherWrestlingPodcast.
Like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/AnotherWrestlingPodcast.
Follow us on Twitter, Twitter.com/AWrestlingPod.
Subscribe to us on YouTube, YouTube.com/AnotherWrestlingPod.
And be sure to follow us on Instagram at Another Wrestling Podcast.
Hello, Mr. Jericho.
Hello, who's this?
Hi, it's Jason Sensation calling with Another Wrestling Podcast.
I've been hearing a lot about those guys. They're doing better numbers than me, and I'm really, I've been trying to get on the show for like a long time here, brother. So it's really great to be on it. I was thinking that we could give Jesse Ventura a call today on your podcast, if you don't mind. I've been talking to him, and I mean, I'd like to have him on my show, but I'm pretty sure that my show, it spreads out for over an hour, so since you've got a short amount of time, maybe we could give the Rudy Tooty Booty Body a call.
Yeah, okay, that sounds awesome. I'm a big fan of Jesse's as well.
All right, let's get Jesse on the line. Just give me 1 second, I've just got to patch him through here.
Hello.
Hello, Jesse Ventura?
Yes.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. You know, this is Chris Jericho. I told you I'd be in touch with you.
Yes, thanks for calling, Jericho. Happy to be a part of your show.
Well, it's not my show, I want to point out. We're on Another Wrestling Podcast. It's pretty much the greatest podcast in the entire world of podcast-roonies, if you know what I'm talking about. We got Jason Sensation on the line. He's doing Jason Regeneration as a part of the show.
Hello, sir. Thank you very much for being on. Big fan of yours.
Thank you very much for having me on. Big fan of Jericho's.
We'd also like to thank Steve and Jonathan for having us do this segment. Those guys are really great guys. I look up to them. I don't really... I'm actually fearful of meeting them because I'm a little bit intimidated of guys who could do so much better than me on a podcast. But anyways, Jesse, could we, get some info from you? Maybe talk a little bit about things.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you a quick question about what you think about the Montreal Screwjob happening again at Payback with Natalia and Charlotte's match.
You know, the funny thing about it is, McMahon, I mean Jericho, is that, you know what? I think it's a conspiracy. The whole damn thing is a conspiracy.
Bret Hart was heard saying that he thought it was stale and an overused segment. What do you think about that?
Absolutely, I think so, McMahon. I think so, Jericho.
Now, also, do you not see how Bret Hart was at the Montreal Screwjob and also he was at this Screwjob? Do you not think that maybe Bret Hart himself is the co-conspirator?
I think you might have a point there. I think Bret the Hitman Hart is the co-conspirator it's all a conspiracy, and Bret the Hitman Hart is the co-conspirator, McMahon. I mean, Jericho.
That's no problem. You can call me. I appreciate that. Let me just throw in a quick question about McMahon. We've got Mr. McMahon he was overheard being asked about the CM Punk chants. He said it doesn't bother him at all, but he wouldn't be having a WrestleMania anytime soon in Chicago. I don't know if the two are related. Do you think those are related stories?
I bet you after they asked him the question, as soon as they turned their back, McMahon was like, and by the way, fuck them, those fucking assholes. Fuck off. That's how McMahon talks to people, McMahon. Jericho.
He is a bit of a hardball. Kind of crazy, don't you think?
He's a conspiracy.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. We're just going to take a quick break right now. I just want to mention some of our sponsors. We've got Rudy Tooty Strawberry Blueberry DDP Yogurt, and I want everybody to go out and pick some of that up. DDP Yogurt. I eat it. It's really good for me, and I really feel that it keeps me regenerated. That's why I'm on Jason Regeneration right now. And if you could also go to Amazon and buy some of the DDP yogurt that they're selling, okay? Thanks very much, guys. You're helping me out. You're helping Steve and Jonathan and Jason and Jesse's body out. You're helping DDP, and you're helping yourself. Okay, now we're moving on. We got Jesse Ventura on the line. How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I wanted to ask you about Hulk Hogan and his second court case with Gawker. How do you feel about that?
Hulk Hogan's a piece of shit.
Do you think this is some sort of conspiracy?
Absolutely. I think Hulk Hogan is a conspirator. He planted the whole seed to get all this money. It's a conspiracy.
Maybe it has something to do with the all-seeing Ayatollah?
Yeah. He's the all-seeing asshole, McMahon. Jericho.
What about this Adam Rose thing? Where do you think this is some sort of discrimination for Adam Rose? He's a sick man, and he's been taking his medication, and he's been suspended. And as of today, I believe he deleted most of his tweets regarding the suspension and his doctor's note. What do you think about that, Jesse?
If I were him, I'd take a trip down to Mexico. Just have a vacation.
You should probably listen to that advice, because you're not only the body, you're the mind as well. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay, now moving on. I got a couple more questions. Is that all right, Jason, if we ask Jesse a couple more questions?
Yep, I think that's just fine. I think, we're almost out of time here, but yeah, sure. It's such a pleasure to have you on, Mr. Ventura. What are your thoughts on Donald Trump?
I think Donald Trump is a motherfucker. I'd kick his fucking ass in a debate.
What do you think about Hillary?
I'd do her.
Okay, well, I've got another question here. I wanted to ask you about, did you hear about Vince Russo and the fact that he's not willing to pay $9.99 for the WWE Network, but he steals it through a friend? Do you think this is some sort of conspiracy, Jesse?
It is a conspiracy. How dare Vince Russo do such a thing? Steal the WWE Network.
I agree
Come on,
with you.
Jack.
I think this as well has something to do with the Ayatollah. It's the all-seeing Ayatollah. It knows what's going on with everything. Vince Russo obviously has a hand in it. So we've got one more question here. What about Ryback and his situation with WWE? Have you heard about this?
They dropped the ball with Ryback.
I believe that John Cena was paid about $9.4 million last year, and Ryback, his contract was about $600,000.
Still not bad money.
Not bad money, but $9 million difference is quite a bit. You know how much money I made? It's a lot more than Ryback, let me tell you. But he doesn't do the kind of things that I do for Vince McMahon in the back office, you know? I mean, there's a reason why I beat The Rock and Austin the same night. Anyways, thank you very much, Mr. Ventura. It was great having you on. Jason Regeneration. Any more questions for Mr. Ventura, Jason?
That was everything. Thank you very much. Such a pleasure to have you on, Mr. Ventura. And Jericho, thank you as well.
Hey, no problem, buddy. Thank you very much, Mr. Ventura. It was great having you.
Thanks a lot, guys. See you in the Libertarian debate.
That sounds great. And also, don't forget, people, buy some DDP yogurt. Some blueberry, some strawberry. The Ayatollah of yogurt is DDP. Go to Amazon.com. Do me a favor. Do you a favor. Do another wrestling podcast a favor. And buy DDP yogurt.
Okay, this is Jason Sensation.
And this is Johnny Bloodclot.
And you're listening to Jason Regeneration.
On another wrestling podcast. Make sure you guys tune in each and every week. Thank you so much.
So, we've talked about wrestlers in movies and, movie-themed wrestling, movies that are based around wrestling, but we haven't really talked about wrestlers on TV shows, guest appearances on TV shows, and all that fun stuff. So there's a whole other universe besides the movie universe. There's also that TV universe. Jonathan, let's get right into it. Let's go back in our little time machine, hop back in, and take me to some place where a wrestler guest starred on a show.
Put the Matthews boy down.
Come over here and say that.
Sit him down now.
Feeney, you can't tell me what to do anymore. I'm not one of your punk students. I'm the face of death.
It was scarier when you had acne. Your little bully tactics didn't work back then, and they're not going to work now. Now put him down.
Make me!
I'd be glad to. Leslie?
You wouldn't.
I would.
All right. You won this round. But next time, and there will be a next time, Texas death match. Loser leaves town.
Yeah. This is why I avoid reunions.
Well, Jonathan, let me ask you this then, because it's 1996, I believe, when this happened. Vader, out of any wrestler you could have brought on, I think Vader, I believe, was in the WWE at that time, right?
Yes, he was.
So, out of anybody in the WWE, was Vader really the best choice to be a guest star on the show? I mean, why not Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart or, I don't know, why Vader?
I think the story wrote itself because of Frankie Stechino, being such a big guy. I think that's why they did that. I think that if it was a different show, if it was Saved by the Bell maybe, or something along those lines, that Shawn Michaels would have been perfect. I thought you were going to ask who I thought would have been a good guest star on that. But yes, Shawn Michaels obviously would have been awesome on Boy Meets World. But I think it was mainly because of the size of Frankie Stechino. They needed a big guy.
Do a shot every time he says Frankie Stechino.
Oh my God. You guys don't even know. You don't even know.
All right, Jonathan, hop back on this time machine. Take me somewhere else.
Well, one of my favorite shows of all time, which is still going strong today, is Saturday Night Live. It's sketch comedy at its finest. And there have been several appearances from wrestlers on Saturday Night Live. It started Hulk Hogan, I do believe, and Mr. T during WrestleMania were the first wrestlers to ever appear on there. And since then, there's been several more, mainly The Rock. The Rock's hosted several times. And there was one episode during the Attitude Era that we saw Big Show, Mick Foley, Triple H, Vince McMahon, and The Rock all on Saturday Night Live. And it was, pardon the expression to anybody listening, but it was a pro wrestling fan's wet dream to see all those guys come on Saturday Night Live. It was two worlds colliding, sketch comedy and professional wrestling. I loved every second of it.
Now look, guys, okay, tonight, I mean, let's face it, you're going to have to put all your personal animosity aside, all right? Tonight is a great opportunity for the World Wrestling Federation. And let's face it, if The Rock does a really good job, then, hey, Mick, you could wind up being a future host of Saturday Night Live. Yeah. Or even you, Triple H.
Even me?
No. I don't want you guys messing with The Rock tonight, okay? Period. Any questions? Show?
Can I hit The Rock with a ladder?
No.
How about like a lead pipe or something?
Absolutely not.
Vince, how about maybe a bicycle chain? Give him a couple.
No, not. After the show, I don't care what you guys do to each other or to The Rock, but just leave him alone during the show.
Yeah, but Vince, I mean, I hate him.
Yeah, I hate him too.
It doesn't matter.
Vince, what if The Rock attacks me first? I've got to fight back, right?
But he won't attack you first, Mick. It's a comedy show. Trust me, okay?
Trust you? That's pretty good. Hey, you've lied to us quite a bit in the past.
Well, yes, and I'll lie again with you to the future, but I'm just not lying now, okay? Now, just leave The Rock alone. Stay away from him.
I get it. You're going to turn on him. You're going to fight The Rock, Vince.
That's brilliant.
No, I'm not going to fight The Rock. Nobody's going to fight The Rock tonight.
Nobody's going to fight him? What the hell kind of show is this?
It's a comedy show, okay? Now, no one's going to hurt The Rock. Is everybody crystal clear on that point? Triple H?
Yeah.
Mick?
Yes, Vince.
Show? What do you have behind you? What are you hiding? What is that? Turn around.
Nothing.
Turn around. What were you going to do with that?
I just want to make sure I had a good seat.
Go. Get rid of it, please.
Vince, what if The Rock messes up one of his lines? He makes the WWF look bad. Can I run on stage and hit him for that?
He's got a good point, Vince.
No, look, we're guests here tonight. Guys, and for a change, I just want to be respectable,
Hey,
okay?
Vince, look what I found. It's that mango dude. Can I keep him, please?
Would you quit it, please? Now, see? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Now, put the little guy down, okay?
Do I have to?
Put him down.
Put me down, thank you.
You guys don't understand. Tonight's The Rock's night.
Okay.
Yeah. And tonight, The Rock is the star of the show, okay? So tonight, The Rock gets all the glory.
Okay.
Except this one part. Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
Just goes to show you how big wrestling was then, because that was pretty much the Attitude Era right there. Well into it a little bit, and, you know, just for them to be on that show just goes to show you how big wrestling was back then. Because I mean, The Rock, okay, he's guest hosted it, but he's The Rock. You know, he's in all these action movies and whatnot nowadays. But back then, you know, just for these guys to be on it for a little bit, you know, that's pretty big, man. Especially like you talk about people who don't watch wrestling, you're having Big Show, Triple H, Mick Foley, and all these guys on it. It just goes to show you what they were doing with the ratings and just how popular they were back then. That, hey, man, we need them on Saturday Night Live. So that's more of a kudos to Vince McMahon and them for putting them over the top back then. So that was way before the PG era.
Well, and if you think about it, there's still times when people come on Saturday Night Live that are huge actors and actresses, and they say, you know, this is my first time hosting, which makes me like think back to that you know, Mick Foley and Triple H have been on Saturday Night Live prior to some of these people, which is just crazy to me. But it's a great thing, and it probably gained Saturday Night Live and professional wrestling a lot of new fans.
All right, Jonathan. Now, you know, I love these. I love going back into TV land. But come on.
God, I already know. Dude, I already know.
Come on. Let's go back.
I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to let you talk about it.
All right, well, hop in my time machine. I'm going to go to the best TV appearance there was, the best TV appearance there is, and the best TV appearance there ever will be. Jonathan, I'm going to take you back in time to when Bret Hart was on The Simpsons.
And I'm sure a pro wrestler such as yourself will appreciate all the closet space, Hitman.
Ooh, this place has got old man stink.
Ooh. Don't listen to him, sir. You've got an enchanting musk.
And you wouldn't even be the only wrestler in the neighborhood. The Shrieking Sheik lives just 3 doors away.
Hey, I'll take it.
Would it be all right if I kept this portrait to remind me of better times?
Why would I want a picture of a pitiful pencil-neck geek?
It's almost as like that Saturday Night Live-esque. To be a guest host is an honor in itself. At this time, to be a guest on The Simpsons was even another honor in itself. To have that, celebrity appearance. And what better celebrity to have in the world of pro wrestling than Bret the Hitman Hart?
The only thing, truthfully, that I remember about Bret Hart on The Simpsons was that there was a magazine that kind of went along with it. There was the WWF magazine that had Bret Hart on the cover, and it had Bart Simpson as well. And I remember that. I thought it was a cool crossover. One of the sad things, I guess, that I really thought would have happened after The Simpsons, back when the Attitude Era was going strong, and you had tag teams like the New Age Outlaws and all that stuff, you had South Park. And I don't know if I'm going too far back or if you guys know this or not, but there was a website called Kenny's Crib. Shout out to Kenny's Crib, wherever you are today. He created South Park wrestlers, ladies and gentlemen. He would draw in the style of South Park these wrestlers. And he was always current. I would go on the interweb every day. I would go on with AOL or dial-up internet for anybody who's with me.
What's that?
And I would look. Yeah, exactly. I would look at these South Park drawings, and I always was a little bummed. Now, I do remember that South Park did a wrestling-inspired episode, but they never had actual wrestlers on there. So as far as cartoon shows that wrestlers were on, I was always bummed that didn't happen, because especially since South Park kind of pushed the boundaries, I thought that it would have been a perfect but it never happened. But yeah, the Simpsons was cool. It was once again a way to interject WWE into mainstream pop culture, which it did. And as you said, I'm staring at my Bret Hitman Hart Simpsons figure right now as we speak.
All right, Jonathan. Well, a lot of TV appearances, a lot of things are happening throughout the years. Let's hop back on this time machine and give me yet another.
Okay. This one was more recent, and it features the best, probably the best appearance of a wrestler on a show. I know I said that with Vader. I say that a lot. I can't choose, but one of my favorite TV shows, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. We got to see the late, the great Roddy Piper. He was the Maniac in an episode of It's Always Sunny entitled "The Gang Wrestles for the Troops," and they were the Birds of War, Charlie, Mack, and Dennis. And Piper was supposed to be on the wrestling show, but ends up getting arrested before he can wrestle for the show. But it was great because a lot of people, they knew that Piper was in movies and other television shows, but Piper had range, and I don't know if people realize that, but Piper could act. And I remember watching a lot of interviews with John Carpenter after They Live came out, and he was talking about how Piper had like a notebook with him on set, and he just jotted things down all the time, and they used a lot of that stuff from his notebook in that movie They Live. So like I've come to chew bubblegum and kick ass and I'm all out of bubblegum, that came from Piper. That was not written by someone, a writer on the set. So I would love to have seen some of the outtakes on It's Always Sunny, because Piper was hilarious in it, and I just absolutely loved it.
It's like $1,400.
Sold to the Maniac for $1,400.
Really?
You know why? Because I can pay you in Invigoron.
This involves you giving us cash, not a product that we would then sell.
We're a business together. That's so cool. I'm gonna go grab my stuff, and then if you wouldn't mind, could you show me which room is mine?
Yeah, you know, from comedy to serious roles. He was even in the movie that just came out recently, too, The Saint. Even though it's a movie, I know. But just speaking as for Piper, he's done so much, and it just goes to show you how overall versatile he was in the world of acting.
Promo of the week.
I vividly recall the signing of the contract for your title shot at Hulk Hogan in WrestleMania 3. You said you taught Hogan a lot, but you had still one more lesson to give him in the final chapter in that big title match at the Silverdome in Pontiac on the 29th.
You want to talk to somebody? You talk to me. He's going to do all his talking in the ring. You talk to me. You want to talk about the final chapter? I'll be glad to talk about the final chapter. The final chapter in the life and history and the career of Hulk Hogan. See, because it's over, Hogan. I know it, you know it, everybody knows it. He had 3 good years, you can't laugh at that. You were lucky, you made some money, you got a cartoon, you got some dolls, you rode good, you had it good. But you know you can't beat this man. Toughest man in the world. Nobody can beat this man. You think with all that blonde hair and a bunch of little Hulksters out there and behind you, you ripping that T-shirt off and shaking in your pythons, you think you can beat him, dummy? It can't be done by you, 10 guys like you, or 100 people like you. This is the next heavyweight champion of the world. Get ready to swallow it, Hogan. It's all over.
Andre, what about that final lesson?
You don't understand, do you, dummy? I do the talking.
I'll conduct these interviews here if you don't mind.
Oh, maybe I will conduct them. How do you like that?
All right, well, we went back in time a little bit, talked briefly about some of the greatest television spots from wrestlers on it. Jonathan, you know, it's good to go back in time a little bit, back to the future, back to the past, back to whatever. It's fun taking a trip in our little AWP time machine, huh?
Yeah, it's always great, and I can't wait to find out what our topic's going to be next week. But, you know, that's very important for all of you guys to know out there. We are very active on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, we have it. So if you'd like to hear us talk about a specific thing, if you'd like us to try to get a specific wrestler on the show, any of that, just follow us on social media and let us know what you guys want. Because after all, we are a fans podcast. We do this because we love wrestling and we love to hear from you guys.
That's right. Now, Jonathan, we had a little bit of a teaser on last week's show of next week's guest, but the Birdman, Coco Beware, will be in the studio. He doesn't do too many interviews, Jonathan, but you know what? He did it with us, and we're going to have Coco on the show, so stay tuned for that next week. Head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. You'll find all of our links, from iTunes to Stitcher to Player FM to TuneIn. Like us, follow us, subscribe to us. Write a good review on iTunes maybe too. You know, any little bit that you could do for us, we'll try to do a lot more for you in the future.
Now, if you're in the Hudson Valley and you love comic books, action figures, and anything dealing with pop culture, head on over to collectorsrealm.net. You guys can visit them at the Duchess Marketplace on Saturdays and Sundays between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. That's Duchess Marketplace, located at 453 Route 9 in Fishkill, New York, just south of I-84. Head on over to collectorsrealm.net.
Hey, all you professional wrestling fans out there. We here at Another Wrestling Podcast have just the thing for you. If you've always wanted to join one of those monthly subscription sites that give you all kinds of treats and goodies in the mail, the best one by far is ProWrestlingCrate.com. You can follow them at PWCrate on Twitter or at ProWrestlingCrate on Instagram. Be sure to check them out and subscribe. The cost is nominal and you get some amazing things every month. And you never know what you're going to get. So tell them that Another Wrestling Podcast sent you and enjoy the Pro Wrestling Crate.
Head on over to pwpnation.com. It's a wrestling media website and community that loves professional wrestling. They strive on creating an array of interesting articles and reviews on everything professional wrestling. Head on over to pwpnation.com.
What's going on, AWP fans? I'm Angry Cooter, the Social Assassin.
host of Main Event Marks. Me and my panel of smart marks go live on YouTube Wednesdays at 9 p.m. for a Rude and Crude show that is for marks, by marks, and is sure to make you laugh or cringe. This ain't your mama's wrestling podcast, so come walk with us on the wild side here at Main Event Marks.
Hey, listeners and viewers of another wrestling podcast, this is Steven from Steve's Wrestling Ramble. If you want a second or third option of hearing WWE news, check out my show, Steve's Wrestling Ramble, on YouTube at youtube.com/user/complain08. Check it out, give it a shot, and we are a little bit different, and as I always say, join the conversation. I would like to interact with people. Give it a whirl.
Head on over to ESSpromotions.com. With close to 30 years of experience, ESS Promotions has become one of the largest talent agencies in the professional wrestling business today. They work with over 100 internationally known wrestling stars, many of whom you know and have enjoyed watching on television for many years. ESS Promotions has built its reputation working with many of the top independent wrestling companies, small businesses, and corporate America, with the goal of bringing you their brand of cost-effective and fan-friendly entertainment. Head on over to ESSpromotions.com for more information.
Well, that's the show. We want to thank you all for listening today.
Every week we do this show free of charge for you, the fans.
And if you're wondering how to repay us, we have just the thing.
Subscribe to us on iTunes.
Hey, and while you're there, be sure to rate us and give us a good review.
If you're looking for more information about AWP, then head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com.
We are all over social media, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and more.
If you are an AWP superfan, you can also show your support by going over to ProWrestlingTees.com/anotherwrestlingpodcast and buying one of our official AWP shirts.
We couldn't do this show without you, so tune in next week for
Another Wrestling Podcast.